Hi, friends. Welcome to Getting Your Real Estate Life Together. I'm Tracy Hicks with All Things Real Estate. And today I have my friend, Instagram realtor extraordinaire, Lauren Goché. Yay. I feel like I need like an audience track. I think I'm going to do that.
Can it just be dogs barking?
No, I don't hear the dogs barking.
No, I was going to say, can it just be dogs barking and excitement? Because I feel like that's very on brand for both you and I.
I think so too. I think that totally works. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Tracy. It's so nice to talk to you.
I know. I don't know why. I mean, I think in the very beginning when we did the podcast, we had you on, but it was like a Zoom thing that we were trying out. And then I was like, no, I just want a podcast. And you were like, hey, I need to be on the podcast. I was like, oh my God, you were, but weren't. So welcome.
Hi.
Okay. So tell us all about you. Actually, normally people are like, okay, how far back? Like when I was born, but I do want you to talk about a little bit of your life before you became a realtor and then how long you've been realtoring.
Well, yeah, for me, I think for a lot of realtors, probably it's kind of a long story process on how to get here. Like I'm born and raised in Oregon. My family are commercial fishermen. There's debate over that. Anyways, and so I commercial fished with my dad and some other boats. I'm just going to full on plug our amazing canned tuna line, Sacred Sea Tuna. So
yes,
that's, of course, going to happen. So kind of commercial fished. I, worked restaurants like most humans in the world. I think like at one point I did like how many jobs have I had? And it was like over 35 or something like that. Like,
OMG.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. The one that people get real shocked about is I was a personal assistant for Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston a million years ago. Yeah. So yeah, I lived in LA for a while. I was an extra for that's how I pay my bills as an extra, which was really like get sucked out the plane and lost in the tail. Yeah.
You are full of stories, actually. I know this about you.
Yeah, I just so many things. And then I traveled for 4 years and kind of accidentally ended up in Portland again. And I really never thought I'd come back to Oregon. And I was like growing weed and I really didn't I was like, I don't really want to live my life in a basement in a super misogynistic industry. Yeah, that's a whole other.
That needs to change. Yeah, you're right.
Dude, I mean, it's like racist, sexist. I mean, it's like just the rest of the world, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like pretty miserable and real poor. I was on food stamps and like just scraping money together for quite a while. And a longtime friend who's a realtor here in Portland was like, you should be a realtor. She actually been trying to get me to be a realtor for like 10 years. And I was like, don't tell me what to do. And yeah, like big snotty child energy. And she was like, but like, you'll really be good at it. And I think you'll really like it. And so I had this corporate job for, I don't know, like 3 years that I was really good at. It was in sales and marketing. But it was like, I worked in an office and it was very male dominated. And I just like had to morph into this human that I didn't recognize. And, and when I quit that and I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And I traveled for 3 or 4 years. And when I quit that job, I promised myself a few things: that I'd never work a job that I would have to like become someone that I'm not. I would never work my ass off to make someone else rich. And I would never work a job that I only had 2 weeks off a year. Right. Which this is going to come back to this as a funny little story.
Full circle.
So anyways, yeah. So anyways, she was like, you can do all those things in real estate, get your shit together, get your head out of your ass and just take the test and do it. And I will be your mentor, which if anybody's starting out in real estate, they know that finding a mentor is like fucking impossible, like a good one that's super committed to your success. And she was. And so I started, and of course she was right. I loved it. I feel like I'm pretty naturally great at it. And that was 8 years ago now. So
Dang.
Yeah. So that's my how I got here story. Did I do it too long?
No, nope. Perfect. Because I think that I feel like there's so many jobs and so many things that people do that naturally bring them into real estate and are little tools in their toolkit of how to deal with people, because you're dealing with so many different types of people. Hopefully you're dealing with your people, you know, the people that you want to attract and that are in your
Well,
tribe.
I get to like choose my clients, but I don't get to choose my co-opting agent. I don't get to always choose my lender, which that's a whole other, like, so you have to still, I've got to the point that I only work with my people that are my people, which is great. But all the other enormous amounts of people in each transaction, sometimes like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Cool. Just get through it. Just get through it. Don't murder.
Yep. Exactly. But working in a restaurant and being a nanny and being a fisherwoman, you know, all of those things kind of just helps you get to where you're going, and it helps you be a really good realtor. It just does.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, talking to people as they get into it. And first of all, I'm like, don't do it. It's terrible.
But I love it.
I know. I'm like the worst, but it's so true. Like, like it's this, like, you wear so many goddamn hats.
It's hard.
It's nuts. And so like all of the things that lead you to this are, I have literally taken something from every one of the 30 something jobs I've had in my life to help me in this career.
Right.
This business. Yeah, for
totally.
sure.
It does. Okay. So you said something that everybody wants to get to, and it does take some time. You said that you pick your people and your clients, and you only work with the people that you want to work with. How did you get there? Because I know everybody wants to know the magic bullet. And then also, does it have to do with your social media? Because if you're not following Lauren, go follow Lauren. Is it just Lauren Goché?
It's Lauren Goché. Yeah, it's just real straightforward.
Goche. But you live your life out on social media, and on Instagram is your favorite. But I feel like it's not for everyone, you know, and some people have a strategy on how they do their Instagram. Sometimes it just kind of morphs into what it morphs into. But you're so real on there that I know that's how you attract the people that are attracted to you. But did you know that in the beginning, and kind of how did you get there, and how has your Instagram morphed into becoming a really high priority in your business?
So yeah, it's interesting. Like, when I first made that promise when I quit corporate that I was never going to, have a job that I had to act like someone I wasn't, like, I took that really seriously. And I'm really lucky in that my mentor really encouraged that. She was like, 100% do you. And like, I was like, oh, like, no other, loudmouth liberal cussing tattooed someone is going to want to use me. And she was like, well, you would want to use you, and you're going to buy a house, so what the fuck is the problem? And I was like, God damn it, you're right.
Exactly.
And she, she introduced me to you, and she basically was like, just go meet a shit ton of realtors and like see how people do it, and then find your way. And I really just embraced it. And I was so, I started in my mid 30s. So I feel like if I had started in my 20s, it might have been a little bit harder. Like, you're just not as confident in who you are. I didn't even know who the fuck I was in my mid 20s. You know what I mean? I was trying shit on. I was like, does this work? Nope. Does this work? For a little bit? Sure.
Girl,
so
I'm
I feel
still
like,
learning. I mean,
well,
I think we do until we die, but
yeah, that's true. Yes. Literally until we die. But I feel like because I started in my mid 30s, I was able to like be like, okay, well, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I like would normally do. And it's interesting because I like Instagram. So, everybody's like, oh, tell me how to do Instagram. I'm like, first of all, you have to like the
it.
platform you're on.
Totally.
Like, you can't force that shit because people can tell.
You won't do it. You'll do it for like 2 weeks or whatever, and it'll be canned shit. And then you just won't do it. I won't do TikTok. You won't find me. We tried.
Yeah. I mean, I will obsessively watch TikToks for like 3 hours straight until my fucking face hurts.
Yeah.
But and like I'm on Twitter, but I don't do the tweeting, but Instagram is the place where I love. And so I basically am just like, my progressive activist, loudmouth, but also like, I post about a shit ton of mental health and body image. And like, I don't have a professional account and personal account. They're the same. And lots of people have very differing opinions on that. And like, to be honest, like, I've had some creepy things happen and I have to be careful about that. But you know, what it is like when people finally meet me, they're like, "Oh, you are what you like." There's not bait and a switch. Like this is
Right.
you, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is
You're not
like it or
catfishing
don't."
people.
No, 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 no. Like this is it. That's all you get. It's a lot of dogs, a lot of cussing, a lot of mental health, some houses.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's travel, freedom, blah blah blah.
But that's what I love about it, because also too, like, I love that you said in some houses, because first of all, nobody wants to be bombarded with real estate shit all the time from you.
They
Like,
don't.
no, nobody does. Do you?
They can go to Redfin for that. Like
Yes,
straight up.
exactly.
Get your
Yes.
Redfin porn
Yep.
and I'll like show you my favorites here and there and tell you about my listings and like tell stories about like it's because it's part of my life. So it's just a part of my life, but it's not my entire life, although it sometimes feels like it.
Right. Yeah. No, totally.
And so like, back to like finding, only working with the people that you work with, like that you love, is that it took me years to get there. First of all, you're fucking desperate. Like I think I closed like one thing my first year and like had to borrow a shit ton of money and I racked up crazy credit card debt because you're out there like, is anybody gonna listen to me? And like
Yep.
just as a as like a
Does
little
anybody like me?
aside,
Yeah.
yeah, like, and as a little aside, I just got a message from someone that has been following me for 7 goddamn years and is like, I'm finally ready. Tell me what to do. So, like, I massaged that fucking person for 7 years. Like, think about that, newbies. Like, holy shit.
And time
Jesus Christ.
flies. Like,
Yeah. But, like, don't be like, I would say it took me a solid 3 years.
oh,
Like,
yeah.
legitimately. You have to, like, despite feeling like you're a failure or you're never going to get out of debt, like, you just got to, those first 3 years. I mean, some people kill it right off the bat and like, good for you. But the rest of
Right. Just winging it. You're
yeah, so
figuring it
like,
out.
yeah, so the first 3 years I would literally take everyone and I was miserable half the time because I was like, ooh, these people, like, ooh, not my jam, like personality wise, or honestly, like at this point, kind of ethical views and stuff like that. And so when I was able to be financially a little bit choosy, then I like really embraced social media and then knew that it was going to self-select out. And so that's what it really is. Like I tell people that are like, hi, like, so and so recommended you. And I'm like, go stalk me on Instagram and see if it's a good fit on your end. And I'm like, having it self-select out on their end is fucking rad.
Right, right. And the referral too, because I think that your people are not going to refer people to you that wouldn't fit with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they know better. They
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
they wouldn't, you probably have friends that they would not refer to you because they're like, oh no, it's just not a good fit. Or
I
Lauren
don't
would,
know, man.
they might be like, Lauren would kill me.
I have my people pretty well trained to like just send anybody to me. And then if I'm like, oh, this isn't a good fit, I've gotten pretty good. Like, and this has been a whole new part of my business is like getting really good at being like, you know what, this would not be good for you. Most importantly, like where you're looking or what you're looking for is not my passion. And you need someone that's passionate and about what you specifically need. And so having that release of like, oh shit, you need someone that is like fucking stoked for you and I am not, and what this specific thing that you're looking for, or something like that. So that's been another huge step for me too, is like, oh my god, this is really good for you, for me to connect you with a colleague.
I was going to say, so how do you handle that? You just refer them to, I mean, obviously when you've been a realtor for 8 years, you have made tons of friendships with other realtors and different personalities. And so you just match them up with someone.
Yeah, I kind of have like I have a note on my phone with like all my favorites all over both Portland and Vancouver, because Vancouver's in Washington state. And so I'm not licensed in Washington, and I never will be. So I have like, and I have people that I know like a certain thing or a certain personality type or, something like that. And I just kind of look at my list and I'm like, oh, who would be perfect for this person? This person. And I call up that realtor and I'm like, this is a situation. Are you down? And they're like, sure. So I have actually gotten to the point that I've even started prepping these referrals or these clients or whatever, like, hey, if I'm not this person for you, I'm going to find someone. And
Yeah.
it really, 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 I mean, Marguerite Martin with Move Tacoma has really taught me this in like such a deep way. I'm sure you've talked to her. Yeah, you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So she just like embedded that into my mind. And like by the time, like, so I think my like rate of successful referral out is something like 90%. So like
Nice.
90% of the, which is insane. Like people are like, what? But I am so deeply convinced that it's the best thing for this client that that's where it comes from. Like, I feel like once I get over my goddamn ego is like, I'm the best person for everybody, which is not
Yep.
true.
Right. It's impossible. But and I love that you said that too, because about referrals, I think that what happens with referrals is that realtors maybe, feel like they only need to refer out a couple of times a year or maybe once or whatever. And so they don't follow up as well. At least that was my problem, is that I would never, like, they'd be like, oh, I'm moving to Indiana, do you have somebody or whatever? And I'd be like, oh yeah, let me look, and then never follow up. But had I have taken care of that person times, probably the 3 or 4 other times that happened throughout the year, those are checks that you're missing out on.
Last year I made $45,000 in referral income,
No way.
and I'm hopefully doubling it this year.
Girl, I need my audience clapping machine. Dang it.
Yeah. So what part of that, and that's on top, like, and I'm a pretty high producer, like, but so what part of that is like, I use Sphere, which is the CRM transaction management that is from Ross Siegelman and Hayden Hamilton. I'm a huge proponent of this particular CRM, and every person that's like, I'm moving to Indiana, they get entered in, and then they get entered in as a potential pending or closed or fell through transaction. All of my referral things get entered in as a transaction in my CRM. So it's not just my normal transactions. So I track that shit like crazy. So they get like my notes, I follow up, like I know who their lender is, I know who the referring partner is. I check like, hey, are they going pending? Give me the address of it. Like, what's the closing date? Because I want their address, like if they're buying, so I can be like, congratulations.
Yeah. That is amazing. Okay, first of all, like, I don't think I knew that Sphere did that, but I'm also guilty of, well, I don't.
I think I made them do it. I was like, hi guys.
I have a idea.
Yeah, I was like, pretty please do this. I'm a
Suggestion
brat.
box. No, I
Yeah.
think that's fantastic, because that's part of the battle of the referral thing, is just a follow up and, remembering, or, because you're so busy with your day to day that it's just something that you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that or whatever. But I also think that's impressive to your clients or the person that you referred out, that you're still in the loop a little bit. I think that is impressive, and that's unforgettable. And that's what every realtor wants, is that unforgettability factor. I think I just made up a word.
Yep, totally. But what I'm doing is I'm training my Sphere to like, the minute real estate enters anybody's conversation of like, oh my God, my mom is moving and she has to sell her house in fucking Montana, sure. And then someone will be like, oh my God, you know what? I have this realtor friend and she fucking knows all the best
Everyone.
realtors in every
Yep.
goddamn state.
Yep.
So let me see if I can hook you up. And like, done. And it's so satisfying, because here's how many calls do we get of like, oh my God, my mom is selling her house and like her realtor's a piece of shit. And like, oh my God, it's a nightmare. And like the communication's terrible and she's not getting any education. She's not getting anyone to advocate for her. And I'm like, you should have fucking called me. And they're like, we should
Right.
have fucking called you. And I'm like,
Yep.
I can't help now.
Right, right. Exactly. So I'm sure that that happens less and less for you now that you've kind of got this system down. And I also want to say too that everybody's system, what we get bombarded with in real estate is systems and how to run your business and how to. And I'm constantly telling people it's got to work for you. Like you just talked about a couple of things that really work for you. And because they work for you, you work it and it gives back to you.
Yeah, I've tried so many fucking different systems. First of all, I'm a systems nerd. Like I want a system for everything.
Yeah.
Like
I think
everything.
you need it in your life, actually.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
knowing you.
Because just chaos. I like unfortunately thrive in chaos, which I hate, but it's just the truth.
If it's organized chaos, hey, it is what it
It's
is.
hey, systemic chaos. Oh no. But yeah, I like had tried and spent thousands of dollars on different CRMs. And so like knowing that I tried this one, I'm like, oh shit, this one works.
Right. Right. And it's a realtor designed this program with Hayden, who's an app guy. I mean, they were the perfect match. And they get to tweak stuff, just like you said, you had a suggestion and they added it. Like
Do
that
I
kind
get
of
to give you my referral fee for everybody using this so I get months free?
right. Yes, you should be.
Should.
Ross, if you're listening,
Should.
I'll send him this episode.
Yeah, Ross is gonna be like, wait a second.
Right. No, he gets it. We refer him all the time. I want to definitely talk about also too, I told you before what I wanted to talk about with you, and you
Oh yeah.
have evolved in your work-life balance. And I think it's always a constant struggle with realtors, but I feel like again, kind of maybe not a system per se, but once you figure that part out, it just changes you. And I know you worked towards that for a long time, that you really want to make sure that you were still traveling, every year and still killing it in your business. And it's probably going to evolve, of course, but I know that's something that you've worked really, really hard at. Where are you at with that? And kind of how did you get to that point? It's funny too, because a while back, years ago, when a few years into you were going to do a training. Remember, I was trying to get you to do trainings on how to be a traveling realtor or
I
whatever.
think I did like one CE class and people
Yep.
were like, cool, so just travel then. And I was like, yes, correct.
Exactly. But that shit is hard, like mentally to break through to that. Like, I can actually go on a vacation. For realtors, that is the struggle bus. So, kind of, how did you get to that
I
point,
have
and
been
what have
through
you
it.
figured
I mean,
out?
oh, I feel like it's been a constant evolving something. You know what I mean? Like, my goal has been to take off either August or January or both. Yeah, have yet to do it. What my pattern has been in the past is like work until I have a burnout, absolute meltdown, and an actual meltdown, like a mental health meltdown, freak out, and then go traveling with no plan in place. That's happened a lot. So that's great. Uh,
Which is probably what most realtors do.
yep. Yeah. And just as like a little backup, like I am like, I don't have a team. I'm not on a team. I have the world's literal best transaction coordinator in the goddamn world, who does a ton, but is, like still not out showing houses and all this stuff. So in February of this year, we had been, a year into the pandemic. And the pandemic year was batshit crazy for real estate.
Yep.
I live alone. I didn't have a COVID bubble. I like went something like 3 months without touching like another human at one point. Like I was losing my ever fucking loving mind. I just worked.
Right.
And I had a goddamn breakdown in February, like so bad that like I was taking like a really high amount of anti-anxiety medication. I literally in a panic ran away to Mexico in the fucking pandemic. I was very masked. I was very safe. It was before people were traveling. The airplane was literally empty. And on the beach in Mexico had 3 more fucking breakdowns. Like, that's how bad it was.
God.
It was like, what the shit? So I got back from that trip, and a really good friend of mine like was sitting, like came over, and we were sitting in my backyard, and he was like, you know, Lauren, I've known you throughout your whole entire real estate career, and this happens all the time. And like, you can tell in how you hold yourself how much happier you are after these trips. And you like, why don't you just schedule this? And instead of freaking out and like doing it reactively. And I was like, oh, duh, Jesus Christ. He was like, you have the ability, you have the flexibility, you just have to choose to do it. And like this, it's to the point that you don't have a choice anymore. And I was like, you asshole. Yes, correct. So then I was like curious. So like most realtors, I mean, like I have so many goddamn clients at a time. And when I'm not like actually real estating, I'm doing all the rest of the shit that runs a business, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
all the stuff, right? Because you're running a business and you have marketing and you have all this other stuff. So I did the math and I was like, okay, a person that is like in a corporate job and has weekends off and like just weekends alone, I think it was like 112, I don't know, I'm making it up. Whatever weekend days in a year is 112 weekend days in a year, right? And then add holidays and vacation. And so like basically a third of the year, even though it doesn't feel like that, a third of the year you actually have days off. I took something like 23 days off. 23.
God.
In the previous calendar year. Like, what the fuck? I was like, that reality hit me so hard. Was like, are you? No, of course I'm insane. Like, this is insane. So that was I feel like that was in March. And I made the commitment to every like 4 to 6 weeks, take off like 5 to 7 days and, you know, go camping or, you know, I'm not talking like all trips to Mexico. Like that's crazy. You know, I have this like super shitty RV that's called Honey Bucket and it's like rusted and gross, but it's awesome. Like take that somewhere. Like, yes, it's called Honey Bucket and I love it so much.
And it has a story too.
Of course it does. It looks like a liability on the road, but my dogs and I just like hop in it and go on adventures. So that's been since March of 2021. And I have stuck to that schedule. And it's interesting. So I am currently in my car, sitting outside an inspection.
I meant to say something about that.
Yeah. So like you and I had scheduled this like a couple weeks ago, but you know, you have to take an inspection when they're available. So it's just like, I'll just do it for my car.
It's so realtor-y of you.
I know. I'm like so typical, such a stereotype. So I walk up and my inspector was like, Lauren, like you look like your energy is different. I feel like you're just doing so much better. Like you don't have that frantic look in your eyes. Which was like the fact that my inspector had noticed, right? Embarrassing. But he was like, your just vibe is very different. Like it is pretty remarkable to see the difference. And I'm like, it's working.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it took you that long to figure it out, but.
And like how many meltdowns? So many. Once a year I have a work related meltdown.
I mean, sometimes you got to go through shit to get to the other side of the shit, right? I mean, because you don't know where it's going to take you.
I guess. I also would rather to not go through shit. I'd rather like, yeah, that'd be great.
Exactly. Well, maybe a few people will learn from your mistakes. And I feel like that's most of my business. I'm like, okay, everybody learn from my mistakes so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I did. And then hopefully I can learn from somebody else as well. So
absolutely. That's why I'm like, you know, man, fucking open book.
Yeah.
I'll tell anybody anything.
Exactly.
You know, good or bad.
But yeah, but there's so much stuff that doesn't get talked about in our industry because people are afraid that it's going to make them look bad or a certain type of way or whatever. And it images everything in all the time. And it's not true. Like being real and being who you are is the most important thing. You're still going to lose your shit, but it's just what's going to happen. And so you deal with it and you are better for it. And I think that if your home inspector is noticing that, then you're doing something right.
I also think, like, being my authentic self, like, something to note is I am my authentic self, but I don't really, it was years ago, and I don't remember who said it to me, but someone said, share something after it's at least scabbed over, if not a scar, not the open wound. And that has been such good advice, is like when I'm in something, like, oh, I'll post something in my stories and I'm like, I'm stressed, but like I don't talk about like how bad something is until I've had a chance to process it myself, to like ask my besties to like help me get through something. And then once I have come on the other side of it and like been like, well, that was a struggle, that's when I tend to share about mental health stuff on social media. Like I don't share when shit is currently going down because it's no one's business. They don't need to see like my open wound, that's for me, and that's for my loved ones.
Well, and I think that's kind of the responsible thing to do too. Not everything needs to be on social
Yeah,
media.
you don't
And
necessarily see that though.
yeah, yeah. There's a famous comedian, dang it, I was watching him last night, who just lost his son there was a car racing in LA, and they were innocent. I think they were innocent bystanders, and like he was in his early 20s, maybe late teens. I can't quite remember, but he got online and talked about kind of about grief, but didn't all the way say grief, but basically said, look, when I'm getting bombarded with calls and texts and how are you? Like, I understand that, that's what people are driven to do. But every time I open up my phone, it's just reliving that day like over and over and over again. And how people deal with grief is always different. And it's always different at any given moment. It was just really nice for somebody to like actually, he's talking about the app, just like what you're saying, kind of the before, like, oh shit, this happened, not necessarily the middle part, but then the after. And then that cycles through, it's just life. And
Yeah,
talking
it
about it, I
is.
think is a big deal. Like we need to, I'm obviously that's kind of been the theme lately is, talking about it and being more open than maybe past generations, but times
Yeah.
are changing.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so interesting seeing. I've been a huge, like, I am like, therapy should be like a birthright. Like it should be like get your annual checkup and your annual checkup with your therapist. But I also believe that there should be like basic universal income and healthcare and housing for all, and just free education through college. So that's like, I'm a full-on democratic socialist. Like I want everybody to have that as a base. And I want therapy to be one of those things, like nothing's like, you're not broken to get therapy. It's just like life is weird, man.
Yeah,
And this
you're
pandemic has proved.
right. Exactly. I was going to say you're healthier for it, obviously, and maybe you don't need it all the time, but I mean, I kind of consider my business consultant my therapist in a way, and I have a couple people that I go to at any given moment, and I have a numbers, budget, stay on track type business consultant. And then I've got, Renee at Abundology. And anytime I need just a real conversation with energy and like what I'm putting off and what I'm getting back, that kind of thing. And then I have an astrologist that I actually, and people would look at me like, you? And I'm like, okay, I'm not like, I don't go to my astrologist for everything. I don't do things on certain days for numbers. I'm not that much into it. But let me tell you, if I'm feeling an energy or something is not right with me, I actually called her for a clearing one time and I'd never done it before. And let me just tell you, that shit like legitimately worked. I asked for, there was like
Yes.
two things that I needed and I got them both. It was the weirdest shit
You
ever.
know what? Let me share something really embarrassing that I probably shouldn't share, but I'm going to do anyways. I want that energy clearing person's
Oh,
information
you're going to love Kara. She's
because
amazing.
listen to this. Like, you were asking me like, what's the future of Lauren? Like I can't believe I'm going to say this on like a podcast that probably a fair amount of realtors listen to. I have taken my principal broker's exam and failed it. So principal broker, for like, that's basically I get to manage other brokers. So therefore I can hire like a buyer's agent or assistant, a licensed assistant. I have taken it and failed it. Ready for this? 4 fucking times. I have failed that goddamn test. And I'm talking by like, I'm missing it by 2 questions.
Girl, I flunked my real estate license 3 times or twice and got it 3rd time.
Right, exactly. Like failing it 4 times is like,
You need a
that's next
clearing.
level. I need a clearing. Send
Girl, I
your
got
person
you.
to me. I am gonna like light whatever kind of herberton she'll need. Like, I do not care. Like, this girl needs
Oh,
this.
you will.
There's a block, and I got to get that because it is a waste of my life right now, and I'm pissed about it.
I got you. Like, she totally is amazing. I did a reading with her. Actually, she was on Renee's podcast, Abundology, and talked about kind of the earth and the cycle of like COVID and why this was happening, you know, and it's sciencey, you know, there's like times of the day and the moon and the sun and the alignment with the planets and all that stuff. You know, there's a science to it. I don't understand or get all that stuff, but there was a couple of things that really resonated with me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do a session. And she told me that like 2023 was really going to be my year and like certain things. And I don't know, there was just, so there was that fun stuff. But then there was also a lot of it was therapy. I just got to talk about my life and what was going on and how I was raised. And, you know, I grew up poor as fuck. And I was thinking about this the other day. It was like, I like nice things. And it's because I was poor as shit and could never have that. And the fact that I can give it to myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
we
gonna
talk
do
about that a lot with Renee, don't we?
Yes. Yes.
Like that shift. Yeah.
And whatever it is, like, you know, for me, I do love bags and I used to buy a shit ton of cheap bags. And so it would add up to probably a Louis bag or something that have all these shitty bags. And you can't use all those all the time. I literally got rid of every single one of them. I gave them all away. And I have nice bags and it's all I have now. And there's like, I have 6 or 7 and I rotate them out. I use them all and they all have a thing. And that makes me feel good, whatever it might be, whatever you call it. I don't know. But anyway, so I think that there is something to be said about certain things and times in your life and all that stuff. There's, you know, I don't know, but anyway, I will give you Kara's information. You need that clearing and you're going to pass that test.
Oh, I better fucking pass it because I will possibly go on a murder spree if I don't. Okay, so no one wants that.
Speaking of future Lauren, realtor Lauren, so you talked about your principal broker's license. So once we get that, kind of what is your plan and what do you want to see for your business in the future?
You know, I feel like that just like adding someone that's like a really good fit and like mentoring someone feels exciting to me. And so just being able to, you know, like honestly, like work less.
Yes. Girl, don't whisper that. Say it loud and proud.
Okay. I want to work less.
Yes.
So I think that like, you know, like with someone else, like I get to like have the insane amount of work spread out a little bit more. And with the chance of also being able to like help like boost up someone cool and create a badass realtor in the world would be awesome.
Yes, I love that. I love that you're merging the two of those things because I think we need more of that. You know, there are some agents that are like, look, I just need an assistant. I want you to be my assistant forever. And that's just what I need in my business. But like I started off assisting Chris, who's now my business partner, and we've owned a brokerage of 12 years. But when we started, he was like, I want you to work with me until you can take off on your own. I want to see that. Like that made him feel good to know that he was a part of, you know, my process in real estate. And you do get something out of that. You really do.
I mean, like hiring someone hoping that they never graduate to the next level, I just think is like shitty boss.
It really is. It's mean.
It's just like, it's a shitty boss. It's kind of classist. It's super selfish. And like, it's not an abundant mindset. Like, do you watch Ted Lasso?
No, I'm writing that down.
Oh, what the fuck? It is probably the best, most, oh my God. It's on Apple TV.
Oh, I'm a droid.
You're just gonna have to suck it up. I don't know. Fucking
I'll find him.
Figure it out. Pay for
I'll figure it out.
Hack some shit.
Yeah.
But it's with Sudeikis, what is his first name? Jason Sudeikis is this like
Oh,
very Midwestern like football coach that goes to England and coaches us like a soccer team, like an English football team.
okay.
And it seems cheesy. It is great. And so like I tell people that I'm like, like I always want to be the boss that Ted Lasso is like just wanting to find the best in people and help them get to their best selves. And like I am so far from that, but it's like goals. Like I want to, if I'm going to employ people, I want to do it well.
Yeah.
Like being a great boss is my goal in life. Like I have my first house is now my rental, and like I just before like on my way to the inspection slash talking to the podcast, you know, my tenant is like, the sink is clogged. Can you call a plumber? And I was like, I'll just snake it. And so I'm like in heels and like cute clothes. And I got my like plastic gloves on and snaking that drain at like 9 this morning. And, you know, like she was like, I'm like, if I'm going to be a landlord, which is a whole classist weird shit anyways that I had to get over, I'm not over it, but like it's just what I'm doing. I'm like, if I'm going to be a landlord, I'm going to be the world's best goddamn landlord. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be in that weird hierarchy thing, you better do it right.
Yes.
Don't be a shithead.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be a
Yeah.
slumlord. Well, and I think that I can see where you would struggle with that. And I know that, you know, and there is some old school ways of thinking about real estate. And there's some old school real estate stuff that is just like 101. Like there are things that you should just always be as a realtor. But I also, you know, investing and being, I mean, that is what, if that's what you want to do, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but basically, as we were always taught as realtors, like it's to invest in properties and to buy. And I mean, we're telling our clients to do it, right? And it's like investing and keeping your house and keeping it as a rental. And I know I did it for a while, and then when I empty nested, I was like, I don't want any responsibilities. I got rid of everything and was
Fair.
like, nope, I'm just
Fair.
going to be a renter. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to do with my life. But I think, you know, investing is smart and being a landlord. But just like you said, you know, just do it the best that you can. Anyway, you don't have to worry about that. You're not going to be an asshole landlord anyway. It's just not in you. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
it's true. I don't know about possible, but it might take a little effort on my end.
I mean, you
I
try things and you learn, and it's, I don't know, real estate is just, there's a lot to it. And picking your lanes and trying some things and not trying some things is all a part of it. Right.
like honestly failing and just then you know doing it again. I was gonna say I found this woman she's on TikTok and Instagram. Her name is Deandra McDonald, and she is a realtor and a real estate investor, and she is like my goals of good landlord. Like she's just always talking about like, oh, you can't pay your rent but you got nails, what the hell? And then she's like, cool, well, I don't really care what you do with your money, let's set up a payment plan. And I'm like, yes, this like she's amazing. You have to look her up. I
I
think you
totally
should
will.
definitely see if you can get her on the podcast because I adore her. I'm
Aw.
trying to make her be my internet friend, so put in a good word for me.
Which also you do really well. Like before the pandemic, Lauren would freaking, people would come to Portland and would be her Instagram friend and would look you up and be like, okay, can we have coffee or lunch? I mean, you've met so many of your Insta friends. It's
Well, I've
hilarious.
not, I think a couple of years ago I had like my birthday dinner, like with like 12 people, and I looked around and literally half of them I had met on Instagram. We're at my like birthday dinners like level. That's like some high level friendship, like
Right. That's hilarious. I mean, that just attests to how you do your social media and that you do you, boo, and that's what works. I love
and
that
it's
about you.
what it makes me the happiest also. Like
Yes.
legitimately, I think that's like it is ultimately self-serving, you know? Like
That's okay.
yeah, yeah.
I think that's another thing we need to do as realtors is unchange some of those things where it felt like it wasn't okay and that, you know, you had to be on your phone 24/7 and at everybody's beck and call. And it doesn't mean you have to be like your voicemail says, I don't return calls after 7 PM or what, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to
Oh,
be
I
like
do that
that.
though. Oh, can I give you my little rundown of my boundaries that have made my life so much happier?
Yes. Please
I want to
do.
share this with everybody. So I do have my voicemail that says that, and I don't always hold to it, but it sets the expectation. I have my phone automatically go on do not disturb from starting at 8 p.m. until 8 a.m. So it doesn't buzz, it doesn't ring. So people get really freaked out if they have like friends. So if you add certain people to your favorites, at least this is on iPhone. I can't tell you, you weird Android people. Um,
Guilty.
I'm sure there's some version of it. There's some version of it. So like on an iPhone, if you add someone to your favorites, there's a setting that's like, oh, a favorite
Can get through.
can ring through.
Yeah.
So my family and my besties are all of my favorites, so they can still ring through. I have a very controversial take. I have my phone, I leave my phone charging in my office, and I do not sleep with it in my room. That has been a life and game changer for me. I know people with like kids are like freaked out, but I have a philosophy that is like very controversial, that I'm like, if something happens in the middle of the night, there's nothing you can do that can help that in the middle of the night for them, that middle of the night call. What I want to do is get my last good night's sleep before my world changes.
Oh.
And I put this a little bit on my stories, and I have a friend slash client whose son is, I think he just turned 5. He's going through leukemia. And she responded and she said the same thing. She said, we were in the hospital and they were like, we want to start his treatment literally at midnight. And she said, can it wait the morning? What difference will that make? And they're like, it won't make a difference. She's like, I need one last sleep before everything changes. And she was like, I was so grateful for that last night before our lives changed. And that's my philosophy on like keeping your phone out. Like people are like, but what? And I'm like, well, you're going to be okay. And if it's not going to be okay, then get that last good night's sleep, because there's nothing you can do in your power. As much as we think we have power over that shit, we don't.
Right.
So like, get a good night's sleep. So I feel very strongly about that.
What I also am kind of hearing you say too is like taking a pause when there is a situation. We react quite a bit, and just like you were talking about earlier, being reactive, and your friend was like, how about trying to be proactive about that? And you needed that pause. You said, I stopped and thought about it. And I think we don't do that enough. So I think if we sit back, I need to take my own damn advice too, but there's situations
same.
where I'm like, I got to fix it. I'm a mom, and so I'm a problem solver, and I hate problems. So I always want to fix them so they'll go away. And
like problems are messy, and it's like a weird OCD thing to be like, fix it. It's too messy.
yeah,
I'll make it straight.
yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes we have to sit in the mess a little bit to understand it better. But taking that pause and like maybe thinking of, doing things a different way than you would normally handle them is super great advice. And I love that because we don't do it enough.
No, I feel like in real estate in general, like when a transaction is blowing up, or, someone's like super freaking out, which happens all the time, like teaching myself and holding myself to like, don't react right away. Like, this is not life or death. Give it an hour. Even an hour, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like be reactionary all the time. You're still solving the problem, but you're letting people like breathe for a second.
Yeah. And I think realtors are constantly on autopilot panic.
Yeah. And I've kind of pulled myself from doing that. Another thing that I do is, because, we text so much. So what I do is, if someone has like a pretty intense question, or even something that like, I have a quick question for you, text, I literally say, can you please copy and paste this in an email? This deserves
More
time and attention.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to do it when I'm in front of my email and not when I'm running around, during the
On my
day.
phone.
So
Yeah.
what that does is that sets an expectation that I'm going to take a little bit to get back to you. So that calms them down. It tells clients that I'm taking this seriously, but I need time. You know what I mean? And so it gives them a second to like breathe. It gives me a second to breathe, because sometimes these questions are like, and then you're like, fuck, and you panic. But when you get your computer, you're like, you can see it a little bit more clearly. You're like, okay, there's a solution to this, or I can find this out. You know what I mean? And so like that alone has kept my stress level lower. It's kept my client's stress level lower. It's given everybody a little bit of space. Like there's just all these things I have started putting into place of like setting expectations of like, I'm not going to answer you like right the fuck now
Right.
because you're panicking.
Right. And you're still dealing with it and you're still acknowledging them. And,
absolutely.
And I mean, that's great advice too, because I forget shit all the time. Even if it's stressful, I'll be like, oh shit, I didn't get back to that person.
Right. And so that's another thing is like, right now, as we're talking, I have 63 text messages waiting for me during this podcast. Yeah, I have 63 text messages.
What the hell?
And so, yeah, I mean, I have like sometimes like how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 transactions pending and like listings coming up and like shit, like, all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like, I need to not forget shit. And so a lot of the time, if I'm like, email me this, I don't want to forget it. It's making them feel like I care, which of course I do.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'll miss shit,
Oh, girl, I'm the worst. I'm looking at I have a to-do list. I usually just write it down just so because I'll remember better after I've written it down. I don't need to go back to it, but I do like to go back and like check stuff off. And then I also have projects that take longer that will probably sit on my to-do list week after week, but I know that it's still there and I won't forget about it. So, I mean, again, it's going back to what works for you. And I think that's great advice. And I think, oh my gosh, I think other people are totally going to use that. And I think that will help.
I hope so.
Help them too.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on and on about all the little tips and tricks and like systems and blah, 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 blah. That's made both me successful, me less stressed, but I think that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, but you touched on a ton of it. And also the takeaway too is that, again, doing what works for you and also trying things and having them fail is okay. And I think now I will say, just kind of like me going through some stuff, like financially spending money on, if you're spending a lot of money, sometimes there's like these high pressure, like you got to put money down today to get this deal or whatever. I get a lot of people texting me or asking me advice. Like, do you know this company? Have you heard about this? I'm like, if they're asking you for a year commitment and I just did this, I lost a lot of money on a marketing company a couple of months ago and I got high pressure sailed into it. I got sucked the fuck in and I was pissed. I was like, you know what? I will never do that again. And I figured out what had happened. I sat back and like looked at it after I was no longer as angry, but I learned from it and I'm like, I'm not doing that again. And I think if you think you should pause, but you also are like, oh, but I have to do it now, fucking pause. Just take a second.
Yeah.
Ask some people, get some advice, whether they know that other company or not. You might say something to them that's like, you might want to rethink that. And so I think that it's priceless. So
I also have started asking people, like, if I'm contracting their services, like, what is a trial run look like? How many months is that before I commit? Because I'm not going to commit because of exactly that. Like, I've made all the same mistakes. I've made, whether it is marketing or like, I have tens of thousands over the years. Fuck, maybe 100,000 over I don't even know. Like, a lot of money over the 8 years of real estate
but like, just think of all the money.
I've gotten nothing back.
Yeah, but think of all the money you're saving in the future because you went through that and it could have been a lot worse or it could have been a lot more money or whatever.
Yeah.
And that information is invaluable too because it's going to work in other ways too, not just the financial side, but like maybe the emotional side or what was it that sucked you in or what, that made you make a decision that you wouldn't normally have made or that you would have made because that's what you do all the time. And like, what about changing that part of it? So, learning from your mistakes, I don't know, is just a part of my life. And I'm a risk taker by nature, but I'm also right. But my astrologer also said I was lucky and it's fucking true. And so I'm like,
well, I think that like, let's be real. Like, you wouldn't be a risk taker if you were unlucky. Like, you fail all the time.
Yep.
You're a risk taker again because you keep succeeding at these risks that you take more than the fails.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so like, that's just like, that's good math to you. You're like, well, I mean, it's netting positive, so keep going.
Right. Exactly.
And same. I mean, and like I'm also going to say like, luck is, we are white ladies. That helps.
Yep, totally. Yeah, and you know what? We also both work our fucking asses off, so
Of course,
there's that.
it's not binary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that
for sure.
also
Yeah.
I think that's also where I don't wanna just say women, but where women struggle or entrepreneurs in general, they're like, "I feel like I have to work all the time because if I'm not, then either my business is gonna fail or it's not gonna look like I work enough." And I think that's a cultural thing that we've done to ourselves as entrepreneurs, and I think that should definitely change.
I mean, I know you have a very diverse following on here, but like that's late stage capitalism. Like that,
Right.
unless you're producing,
You're nothing.
you're a failure.
Yep.
Yeah, which is like bullshit.
Yeah.
It's fucking bullshit. Like the point of capitalism that we are at right now is like it's so fucked in so many ways, and so like I am like my goal in life right now is unfucking my brain. It is becoming
Yes. Isn't
anti-racist.
that a book?
It is what, unfucking my brain? I don't
Yes.
know. Is it?
There's a book.
I don't know.
Girl, you gotta find it.
Okay, well,
Somebody
I'll read
just was
it
talking about it.
because I feel like I could write it at this point.
Right.
So like I'm trying to, yeah, I'm trying to become anti-racist, which is a lifelong goal. Like completely get the internalized misogyny out of my brain,
Mhm.
stop the like extreme capitalist everything where if we're not working ourselves into the ground and like fucking entrepreneur porn, then we're like failing.
Yep.
Like getting the internalized fat phobia out of my brain. Like there's just so much that I'm like, this I'm totally going. I am like going completely off in the wild right now. But like this, I was not born with all of these ideas. Society forced, they like literally as parasites into my thoughts. Fuck you, get out. It
Yep.
is not what I believe.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think age has a lot to do with it. You know, I'm going to be 52 this year. And I think even between 40 and 45, I mean, you definitely, the whole wiser thing, older and wiser, is fucking true. It just is. And by the time I got to 50, I literally just don't give a shit about a lot of the stuff that I gave a shit about before. And not that I don't care about things or people, but it just, the way my brain is working is so much more different. And I have all young generation working for me. They're all under the age of 30, most of them in the 25 range. And, you know, and I talk to them and I listen to what's going on in their life and that kind of stuff. And I give advice and I'm like, you have to realize I'm 50. I should be thinking this way. You're 25. You should be thinking the way that you're thinking. There's nothing wrong with you. You know, you're
Yeah.
20. It's life experiences. You don't have that yet. And I can tell you till the cows come home, my advice, and you're going to take it or not. Mostly we don't take that kind of advice,
Yeah.
but there
No.
might be one thing that resonates with them where they're like, oh shit, you know, and then I don't know. It's just one of those things where the older you get, I love being 50. It's the best thing ever.
You know, I also like have been trying to normalize being close friends with a wide variety of ages
Mm-hmm.
for me, and like deliberately not just like having diversity in my friendships
Yeah.
of age is like so I can keep fresh with, because I'm like, oh my god, the Gen Zers are like, I'm blown away by them. I love them. Like the way that they see the world is, I'm just so impressed. But also, I want people older than me that have so much more perspective of like, yeah, fuck this shit. You know what I mean? Like, I want it all. I want it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And even people that are older than me, you know, like have been through it too. And like seeing where they're at now and then also knowing where they were or hearing those things is so helpful because it's like, okay, yes, I can keep going. You know what I mean? It's like something to look forward to in a way, but also just like always be learning and all of that stuff is so important, especially in real estate. Like you can't not you're learning every freaking day, all day, every day, because you of your client base and who you work with and their lives and what's going on with them and all that stuff. So I think embracing it and utilizing it to benefit and be better and not feel bad about that shit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I feel like there's still sometimes where I like want to pretend like I know everything because, you know, I have ego like everybody else. And then like the times that I'm like, holy shit, I want to learn that. Or like, I didn't know that. Cool. Like, I just feel so much better.
Yes, yes, exactly. Okay, well, we could go on and on and
I
on.
clearly we were like totally tangentially gone off. So,
No, but I think again, it's all important, it's all relevant, and you're amazing. And
oh, I
your
love you.
inspection is about to end, and your 63 text messages are stressing me out. So I'm so glad that we did this, and I'm
Me
so
too.
happy that you did it in your car at a home inspection because that's just so freaking Lauren. And I can't I can't wait to for people to hear, your journey and kind of where you started and been through and where you're going because I think
Yeah, yeah.
that's such an important part that we forget about. So, I have homework to
Well,
do.
I
I gotta
I
send
just love
you
you.
Kara. I gotta send
Yes,
you I need to look up Deandra,
you do.
Ted.
You do. You have people.
I
You got
do.
people. But also like you were one of the very very I mean, I am talking I had maybe been a realtor for 6 months and you were one of the very very first people that was a realtor that was like, "Yeah, baby realtor, like I will share everything I know." And it's just so cool that you fucking turned that into a goddamn business. And I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful to you that like you're like, okay, this because it's so important. Like there's no like to share all of the things, nothing's proprietary. Like
Yeah.
share your shit. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Yeah.
let's lift us all up. And like you've done that, you're doing that. And I think you're the coolest
Thank
and I
you.
love
And
you.
you know what? That's a testament to this business changing because it has been a particular way for a very long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and that's just not the way the world works anymore. And I will say that I do remember you and I went to I always do this. I always say goodbye and then I have another story, but if we you and I went to like a coding, remember that woman coding class thing?
Yes.
And we were
Yes.
so out of our element. We were like, what the hell? So we went to the bar after, and your one of your very first questions, and that I thought about this when you talked about like asking other realtors and talking to realtors about their business and just having those conversations wherever the conversation may take them. But your main concern was you were afraid to be yourself. And I think that exactly what you said, you had been told, yes, be yourself and do that, but it's hard and scary. And you asked me, and I was like, girl, you can't do anything but. First of all, your personality, you have a larger than life personality, and people are going to love you or leave you, whatever. But the people that love you are your people, and you have such a strong tribe. You did that shit. You created that. Those people surrounding you and love on you and, are there for you during your breakdowns and telling you to take vacations, all that stuff. Everything has brought you to today. And I love watching you and seeing your journey. And you're just as, you're amazing. And I love having you in
Oh,
my circle and my people because I've my circle has narrowed down, girl. Believe that when you get older.
that's another thing about aging. Yeah,
Yes.
it gets real. Like it's so where you're like, yeah, I
I
don't
don't have to do
need.
that.
I need. Like I don't have to be there for all these people. What I have to do is like find the most amazing, supportive, real humans in the world, and then like be the
Cultivate
best.
those. Yes. And
Yeah,
you get to give
yeah.
more time and energy and love, and it clears your brain. There's no, you clear out the, I don't want to say drama, but maybe negative, whatever it
It
is.
is drama. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. God, I know we're just like, we're going to end this totally. But it's interesting because like over the years, I like the people in my inner circle, right, are like amazing humans. Like Chandra Ashford, who you've had on your podcast, is like one of those people. And it's like, it's someone that's like, if there's a problem in the friendship, we'll talk it out. And like, we will support each other and be there for each other and like laugh. And like, if we don't talk often for whatever reason, we'll be like, oh my God, I miss you,
Yep.
like,
There's no love
and I,
lost.
now it's to the point that I have, yeah, like there's no guilt or blah, 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 blah,
Yes.
blah. And so I've like really taken, I'm like, these are very healthy relationships in my, like, my inner circle is like these are healthy relationships, and now I'm just like photocopying that template
Yes.
into my clients, into my
Yes.
actual clients. I'm like, now I know what a healthy relationship is. I want that healthy relationship
In my
in
work life.
everything.
Yes.
I want it with the vendors I use.
Mm-hmm.
I want it with the fellow realtors. I want it with my principal broker. I want it with, like, now
With
I'm
your
to the
home
point that I'm like,
inspector who tells you he sees
with
your vibe.
yeah, yes. That he's like, hey, you seem really good mentally. I recognize, you know what I mean? Like, now I'm like, I'm literally like carbon copying these healthy relationships in every aspect of my damn life.
I
Like,
love
literally.
that.
And that has made it so I am trying to be able to have, like, that's the fucking hill I'm gonna die on. I feel like that's it.
I love that.
Right there.
So basically
Yeah.
what we're saying is y'all need to get friends like me and Lauren.
Yep, pretty much. And don't forget counseling.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Friendship counseling counts too.
Yeah, for sure. It does.
All right, honey buns. Okay, so where can people find you?
Honestly, like, Instagram is probably the best. So it's just my name, Lauren Goché, LAURENGOCHE. There's going to be some dogs, and there's going to be some traveling, and there's going to be me talking about my mental health, and there's going to be me talking about my activism, and then some houses.
Right, exactly. And then some houses all mixed in there. And I will say, obviously I know that that's where you're at, but I was like, I was going to email you a reminder. And then I was just on Instagram last night. I was like, oh, I'll just DM her and she'll get it. Like, I know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, an embarrassing not. My website, I just got redone, so it's also just laurengoche.com.
Yay.
So you can check me out there because it's real cute.
I love that.
So
okay.
I think that's probably my two main.
So go follow Lauren, chat her, DM her if you need a referral in Portland, vice versa. Build that referral business.
For sure. For sure, build that up.
Yep. I love that. Well, good luck on your home inspection.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you for being you.
Thank you for being you.
All right, dear.
Bye, honey buns.